one. So best of 3, this is all about information warfare and then outplaying based on the information that you have. It's going to be really crucial for these players to get the most out of every turn of each game so that they can understand the opponent's team. Because if you don't understand the team, then you can't counter it. You don't have a way out. But we are going to hop right into game right now. Top of your screen is going to be Jake Muller. Up the bottom is going to be Zach. Zach leading that Landorus Therian, as well as Jellicent back on the field, while Jake is choosing to go with Terrakion and Thundurus.
Nice to see that Jellicent from Zach. Much like Tiffany using Virizion earlier, just kind of one of those Pokemon that he's known for. I mean, he's used it for, seems like all of 2012 and 2013 pretty much. Typically, he uses a more defensive Jellicent. He likes the Will-O-Wisp, he likes the Recover, he likes Cursed Body rather than Water Absorb. So again, it's good to see him have the pieces that he's shown that he can use well. Him and this Jellicent have won regionals together before.
He's won more regionals than Jake has probably participated in.
Right, but this first turn is pretty interesting here. We've got the Intimidate from Landorus weakening Terrakion, but also that Thundurus out there threatening the Jellicent.
Yeah, but Thundurus is also threatened by the Rock Slide coming out from Landorus. Is going to deal some good damage and a little bit of extra. Ooh, oh, the double flinch Rock Slide up against that Scald from Jellicent. Going to get some, oh, and the burn. I can't even get the words out. So much is happening on screen. Double flinch from the Rock Slide, Scald burn. We said it earlier, where there's a Landorus, there's a way. You don't even need to be in a bad spot. You can just use those rocks.
Yeah, it's really funny to me to see that Zach is the one who got the Landorus Rock Slide double flinch. He's a big fan of talking up, and all you should do with Landorus is Rock Slide. It's the right play every time. And there it is. Like, for all the people to get it. And best of 3s, everyone. So big start for Zach here. Another Rock Slide would almost knock out both of these Pokemon. And wisely, Jake's going to try to let something else happen here and not just take the early deficit.
Yeah, can't just take that free damage. Switches out Terrakion for Hydreigon, hoping that Terrakion can be useful a little bit later. Thundurus is going to survive that Rock Slide there. Is going to eat its Citrus Berry and heal up. Didn't quite deal enough damage to get it, but another flinch. 3 for 3 out of flinches on that Rock Slide. Scald from Jellicent is going to pick up the KO at the end. Oh no! 1 HP for Thundurus. Flinched, but it's hanging on at least.
Yeah, it's trying its best, but it just can't get any attacks off here. It's pretty strange too. I mean, this is there's been no damage inflicted on Zach's side of the field yet, but Jake hasn't dropped a game all day, so sort of an unfortunate time to be looking like he's going to be dropping the first one here. If you look at the matchup, so he does have the pieces to win this series. Hydreigon definitely the worst enemy of Jellicent for sure. Definitely not something you want to see with Jellicent. Pretty much everything you do isn't very effective against it. That Dark Pulse can do a bunch of damage. Thundurus is there to help out too, but geez. Yeah, I mean, tough game so far.
That's exactly why Jellicent switches out. Of course, Thundurus trying to get that last-ditch Thunder Wave, but of course the new changes to Thunder Wave, the electric type Thundurus on Zach's side, not going to be able to be paralyzed by it. So Thundurus goes down without a fight, but Draco Meteor is going to come out from Jake's Hydreigon, is going to connect with the Landorus, and he's gotten some bad breaks, but that's a lot of damage, and he's going to get the clean one-hit KO off of that Landorus.
At least get some stuff moving the other direction. Also, seeing that attack hit might be useful for Zach. If he doesn't know what type of Hydreigon is, like, okay, there wasn't recoil from a Life Orb. It knocked me out. It's not faster than my Landorus, so it's a good chance. Zach's probably thinking, oh, probably Choice Specs. So get some information there, which you almost feel bad for Jake there. Like, oh, he had to give something up too. Yeah. But one thing I do like seeing there is that, they're seeing that Thundurus switch in to block the Thunder Wave. That's a big deal of why I think Thundurus is it's a lot more manageable to play against this year than it's been in the past. Clearly Thundurus is doing fine, as we see 2 in the top cut here. Yeah. But, it's a little bit easier to fit, both an electric and a ground type Pokemon on your team perhaps, and you've got 2 ways to switch into that Thunder Wave now, and rather than just eating it in something slow that doesn't mind too much.
Yeah, and Jake's in a poor position, but Hydreigon and Landorus are both really strong choices for running it back, taking that early deficit and still being able to get the win. Thundurus switching out in favor of Jellicent, while Landorus switches out for Terrakion and Mega Metagross on the field. We saw Jake do a lot of work with his own Mega Metagross, but now Zach has it and the momentum to use that Protect with the Mega Metagross. Hydreigon is going to keep going on the offensive, though. Draco Meteor connecting with Jellicent, going to be dealing some decent damage, of course, lowered special attack thanks to it, but it's going to deal a lot of damage. The critical hit! through the special attack fall, dealing so much damage to that Jellicent, gets the one-hit KO, which almost never happens to a Jellicent, especially a Jellicent that Zach is using.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on in this game? So yeah, one of the advantages of, I guess, critical hits is you ignore your own stat drops. So it's like that first Droegkamp meteor never even happened, and you get the critical hit damage. I think for Jake here, I mean, he's at least back in the game now, so I'm sure he's barely even considering what he should be doing at this point. He's going to try to find a way to reset that Hydreigon's special attack, because unless he wants to go for yet another crit, it's still a pretty challenging position here, but it's definitely a winnable game now. If he can find a way to get his own Thundurus in and get that Metagross paralyzed, he can pull this one off.
Yep, like I said, if you have two Pokemon that you have to rely on to take the sweep, Landorus and Hydreigon, not that bad. Hydreigon is going to switch out for Landorus to try and get the special attack reset on Hydreigon. Also going to get the Intimidate off onto Metagross now that it has Mega Evolved. Loses that clear body. Iron Head on Terrakion, going to get the KO there. But that Terrakion was just there so that Jake could switch out anyway. Hidden Power from Thundurus, most likely going to be Ice type onto Landorus. Is it going to get the KO? Not quite. Landorus sticks in with just about a third HP left. And this is looking pretty dangerous for Zach now.
Yeah, it's definitely at least a losable game. It seemed like it was completely over, but there's two Pokemon out now that can easily do a bunch of damage to Metagross if they get the chance, but the Swagger coming out.
When in doubt, click the Swagger button. Swagger onto Hydreigon, raises the attack, and confuses.
It's an audible boo here from the crowd. Not a fan of the Swagger.
Yeah, you know, that just happens when you have too much Swagger, though. Mega Metagross is going to pick up the KO onto Landorus, though. Iron Head picks that one up. Hydreigon is confused, gets the Dark Pulse off, is going to be able to connect with that Thundurus, deal some good damage. Not enough. Citrus Berry proccing for Zach, going to heal right back up. And Hydreigon, confused, probably locked into that Dark Pulse, which is what it wants to be anyway, but against Mega Metagross and Thundurus, pretty uphill battle.
Yeah, a little bit surprised to see it didn't choose to knock the Metagross out instead. Perhaps it was expecting a Protect there.
Yep, Iron Head onto that Hydreigon, and Hidden Power comes out once again from the Thundurus to pick up the KO onto Hydreigon. And Zach, you know, it was a messy battle, but Zach picks up the W, picks up the win in that first game. Jake really toughed it out, though. He did what he had to do to give himself a fighting chance.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give him credit. I mean, for his first loss of the day, that was a very difficult battle to try to manage, and
yeah, he did not go down easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is actually a really difficult game kind of for both sides to recover from going into a game 2 here, because I mean, that game is such a mess, right? So it's kind of both, they're probably both laughing about it. And it's like, okay, like, you got to refocus now. Like, what did I learn here? Like, what wrong in game 1 that I can do better in game 2? Like, what Pokemon changes should I make? I think that you know, when something that strange happens, the whole match is that silly. It's tough to refocus sometimes. But you know, it's a 3-game set.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's best of 3.
Yeah. So it's got to refocus and immediately adjust. And I think a lot of that is you know, advantage for Zach here in this next game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having the win going into second game is always an advantage, but we're going to hop right into game 2. We are underway with team preview. You can see Jake on your screen right there. He's running that Hydreigon, Metagross, Landorus, Ludicolo, Terrakion, and Thundurus up against Zach's Metagross, Thundurus, Landorus, Hydreigon, Jellicent, and Terrakion.
Yeah, I should say part of what I think Zach has the advantage here for, it's not even just, I mean, obviously, given the option, you'd prefer to be up a game rather than down a game. But I mean, Zach's got a lot more best of 3 experience, right? So I'm sure he's had games like this before, where the first game of the series, pretty bizarre. You pretty much just have to throw it out and keep going as far as, you know, the tempo of the match might be going. So, you know, if anyone should know how to deal with this situation, just kind of like, you know, calm down, readjust, you know, play the next game correctly rather than, you know, letting anything linger, it should be Zach. So it'll be a very great test for Jake here. Just he's a very experienced player. He's down a game now. It's his first time. He's lost a game all day, so he's kind of have to recover from that. Good test for him here. But if he can pull this one out, I think he's definitely going to be you know, one of the favorites to take the tournament here. And if he does lose, you know, probably Zach's one of the favorites, right? You know, with all that experience, taking out the top seed. So big match here it could be. Yeah,
definitely going to be interesting to see how both these players perform. Metagross, Thundurus out for Jake. Terrakion and Thundurus out for Zach. Again, the double Thundurus leads. Thundurus, we saw Zach use his own Thundurus to counter Jake's, but what we haven't seen is the Metagross lead. Right out, trying to put forth a lot of offensive pressure, but of course Zach doing the same with his Terrakion.
Yeah, and it's a tough position here, dude. You really don't want to get your Metagross paralyzed. We do know from previous matches it's a third of that substitute.
Yeah.
But it's so hard, too, because they've got such similar teams, right? As you have to worry about leading into mirrors, so trying to predict here is really challenging for both sides.
Yeah, and it looks like Zach has chosen not to predict, going for the protect on Terrakion, trying to just scout out what's going on. Oh, but Jake going for the taunt instead gets a Thunderbolt from Zach's Thundurus onto Metagross. Metagross setting up the substitute though, and we saw how effective Jake's Metagross was behind that substitute during Swiss.
Yeah, I kind of wonder with how similar these teams are in that play, if these guys haven't played each other a few times before.
Maybe a couple times.
I mean, clearly, Zach expecting to get taunted there and getting that Thunderbolt off, so at least he gets something out of the play.
Zen Headbutt coming out from Jake's Metagross onto Thundurus, trying to get it out of the way as quickly as possible. Feels just over 50%, going to be able to proc that Citrus Berry, healing up back to a pretty healthy amount. Terrakion close combat onto the substitute, just going to try and break that open so that Zach's Thundurus can get the KO with a Thunderbolt. It does lower its defenses though, which will make it a little bit easier for some of Jake's other Pokemon to take it out if necessary. Jake's Thunderbolt onto enemy Thundurus, not quite enough. Well, Zach's Thunderbolt, on the other hand, onto the Mega Metagross, not quite enough. Just barely survives. Incredible for that Metagross.
Yeah, it's like Metagross doing its best to prevent anything like last game. Like, this time, I got it.
Mega Metagross is here. This game is under control.
Really great turn kind of by both sides there, though. It's kind of fun watching this matchup. They seem to be very familiar with one another, so, Metagross protecting there is probably a play that most players would expect, but, Zach correctly guesses it's not going to. Very nearly gets the knockout. At the very least, he gets it low enough that, one more attack from anything will easily get rid of it. Also, did you see the Thundurus on Jake's set hasn't even gone for a Thunder Wave on Terrakion, probably expecting a Lumberry there, but, somewhat irregular. Again, good chance he knows the item there. And I think these matches where the players seem to have a pretty good feel for each other, really fun here, where it can take a little bit more of a risk than you might normally because you're making educated guesses.
And Zach's actually going to switch out his entire team right now, switching out for Jellicent and Landorus. Going to get the Intimidate off onto Mega Metagross. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but that Intimidate is going to be key to keeping Mega Metagross in check now that it's lost its Clear Body. And he gets them for free, at least no attacks from the Mega Metagross as Protect comes out. And Thunderbolt does correctly target the Jellicent slot. It's going to deal quite a bit of damage, about half, but Cursed Body disables Jake's Thunderbolt. You mentioned it. Zach loves his Cursed Body, and here it is, paying off for you.
Yeah, and there it is. That's why you use it. With Metagross solo too, Landorus can go right back to rock sliding, and we saw what that did to Thundurus the first game. If this is a typical Zach Jellicent, I would expect it to have recovery here, so it can heal right back up. Or expecting a switch here, it can go for a Will-O-Wisp, try to catch something unsuspecting on the switch here if he's expecting that Jake isn't just going to cough a Metagross, which I think is very likely here. So I would probably go for the burn myself. But at the very least, it'll be easy for Zach to take advantage of that turn. The leftovers will heal if he doesn't use Recover himself. And played himself into a pretty nice spot there thanks to that Cursed Body.
And you are correct. Jake is not going to let Mega Metagross go down quite that easily. Switches out for Hydreigon. Takes the Rock Slide. Thundurus taking a little bit of damage too. And flinches. I don't know what Zach's doing, but that Landorus seems to really like him. Jellicent's going to go ahead and recover, but that Landorus is that about 4 out of 4, 4 out of 5?
It's got to be something like that. It's the Landorus is carrying pretty hard
here.
And once again, there's a lot of pressure on the field. Zach did learn the previous game that he can't just take a Draco Meteor here unless he wants to cough Landorus up. So obviously a little bit more complicated position than it might otherwise be with Thundurus being so threatened by Landorus. But Thunder's probably going to have to go out here with that Thunderbolt available. So again, difficult position for Jake, and it's tough for Zach too because either of these Pokemon could be blown up now, either a Draco Meteor on Landorus or a Dark Pulse on Jellicent. Yeah,
and the Rock Slide coming back out. Thundurus still going to be able to survive. We saw this before. Can Zach get more flinches? Jellicent trying to survive too. Thundurus using Hidden Power, going to probably target that Landorus down. Probably Hidden Power Ice. Is it going to pick it up? Not quite. 37 hit points, very close, but Dark Pulse double targeting the Landorus. Jake has had enough of these Rock Slide shenanigans, and he's just not going to be okay with risking the flinch anymore. Scald from Jellicent. Oh, doesn't get the KO, but gets the burn. I was about to say that's the pitfall of using that bulkier Jellicent, but then the burn just picks it up for him.
There you go.
Yeah.
That knockout might not actually be the worst thing in the world for him. I just get a free switch off of it. Usually you want having Thundurus out against Jellicent, but without Thunderbolt available, it may actually be better to get Metagross out here.
Fair.
He gets that out to start checking Terrakia, which he actually very much needs because of Hydreigon there. And with Dark Pulse threatening Jellicent, I think that burn actually really helped him, because otherwise he's going to have to start. He would have had to cough up a Pokemon there to try to switch into better position, because Hydreigon most likely can't protect. So good luck and bad luck there, which I think he's earned at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's just how it works. That's one of the things that separates good players from great players, or great players from good players, is knowing when you need to just sacrifice a Pokemon to get the free switch in. And Jake, got a little bit of luck there, but still manages to pull it off. Terrakion protects. Jake predicts that, goes for the Zen headbutt onto Jellicent. Doesn't get Cursed Body. Dark Pulse onto Jellicent. Is it going to get Cursed Body? Does get Cursed Bodied. Picks up the KO though on Jellicent, but Cursed Body onto that Hydreigon. It's a good thing that Jake has another Pokemon.
Yeah, that would pretty much have just ended the game there otherwise.
Yeah.
Hydreigon wouldn't be able to attack. So I'd say there's almost a 100% chance it's going to be switching here. Metagross most likely the fastest Pokemon in the field, so it can probably pick up a knockout here. And when Hydreigon comes back in, it might be able to close the game. So in spite of how strange this one's gone, Hydreigon may be able to carry this. And it's kind of nice to see. Hydreigon is another one of those Pokemon that was among the very best Pokemon in 2013. Was good but not great last year, so it just seems right for it to be coming back here and taking over a match.
Yeah, and it looks like Hydreigon is going to stick around, actually. A Swagger onto Mega Metagross from Zach's Thundurus. We'll see if Metagross will be able to attack through the confusion. Is confused. Is going to be able to get the Iron Head off. Will connect with Terrakion. That's going to be the one-hit KO on Terrakion easy, especially with that Swagger boost. And Hydreigon sticking around. Has no moves left. It's the struggle. Hydreigon struggle. Oh, it's trying so hard.
Ooh, well.
I mean, I think that pretty much defines Jake's first two games so far. It's been a struggle, but somehow Jake is managing to come out on top in the second game. Here comes the confusion again. Metagross getting off another Iron Head. Confusion not working out for Zach. Thundurus not as well trained as that Landorus is in the art of the RNG. But Jake will be able to pick up that KO and pick up game 2, and we are headed into a game 3 here in the top 16.
Yeah, it's really fun to see a third game here. We've got a really sloppy series so far, but
it's been fun though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is very entertaining. A couple matches so far. I'll be interested to see this game if both players kind of keep playing fast and loose and take a bunch of big risks, or if they try to reel it in a little bit. I mean, both players have their tournament lives on the line here. One of the downfalls of the best of 3 is that you can only lose one of these, right? You're out. This is a single elimination part of the tournament. So, both these guys probably want to take it a little bit easier. I'm sure they both like to avoid risking their tournament lives on Swagger or Rock Slide or something of that nature this time. But it's going to be tough. I think Zach this time really needs to try to find a better way to control Hydreigon. I feel like it's something like 5 knockouts over 2 games or
Hydreigon's
something.
really been doing work for Jake.
So that's definitely something I think he's going to have to get under control here. It just, I don't know, it might require a Pokemon change on Zach's end, just because he doesn't have a good way of taking it out with what he's been picking so far. He does have, a Terrakion available, so that might be something that's worth thinking about for him.
All right, well, we are going to get into game 3 here in St. Louis. Again, the loser of this game is out of the tournament, and the winner will be advancing to the top 8, which will be held tomorrow. So we're going to hop right into game. Of course, you have Jake on the top of your screen and Zach on the bottom. Zach on your screen right now. It's going to be, I mean, we've just seen fast and furious this game. And, maybe they'll slow it down a little bit. Ludicolo on the field certainly suggests that, possibly. But, I still think that these players are going to, this is their last shot. They have to go at it with everything that they've got. And Jake choosing to lead that Ludicolo Hydreigon. Zach using his own Hydreigon. If it was working for Jake, why can't it work for Zach too? Alongside Metagross.
Yeah, this makes the situation even more awkward than it could have been before. You'll get the Hydreigon mirror is one of the strangest to play out, because there's a good chance they have exactly the same speed. So you're flipping coins if you're just running them at each other. And if Draco Meteor hits, you are definitely going to knock out the other Hydreigon in a single hit. So do you want to take that risk in this scenario? Well, probably not. But it's going to be tough for Jake's side to avoid it, I think, just because Metagross is creating a lot better pressure on Ludicolo than the reverse here. And probably after a protect here from Metagross, it's going to put Jake into a somewhat precarious position.
Yeah, a very interesting choice to bring that Ludicolo as the lead, whereas Zach immediately mega evolving his Metagross to create that offensive pressure. His Hydreigon actually protecting as well as his Mega Metagross. So a double protect here from Zach, trying to avoid that fake out from Ludicolo. Dark Pulse coming out from Jake's Hydreigon also. So burn the fake out. We know that Hydreigon at least isn't choice locked, so most likely Life Orb or some other offensive ability. Definitely much more offensive pressure coming from Zach, especially with the burned fake out.
Especially because we just saw Dark Pulse, right? So while his Hydreigon is not locked, the enemy Hydreigon is locked into Dark Pulse. So well, Metagross probably going to be taking a quick exit stage left here. Oh, wow, it's actually not.
Nope, Metagross sticking around to get the Zen Headbutt off onto Ludicolo, dealing well over 50%. But Zach's Hydreigon gets the Draco Meteor off first. You mentioned it before, going to get the clean KO on Jake's. You know, that's just a lot of damage, and Hydreigon not able to take that. Special attack falls, which will make it a little bit less threatening now, but of course it can switch out and in. We see the damage taken from its Life Orb. So Jake now knows the item of the Hydreigon, but might not help too much. Scald coming out from Ludicolo does not get the burn. Really wanted that.
Yeah, that was very important to trade there, even though it wouldn't have gotten the knockout and Metagross, obviously. At least start wearing it down, reducing that damage out, but it's a really difficult position now for Jake. You know, that first turn, just if he didn't guess right and catch Zach not protecting there, it was really going to be tough for him to recover from because he didn't have a safe switch for that Draco Meteor. But I'm curious if that actually was a speed tie or not. You know, they could have been trained differently, but you got to assume that they weren't if Jake was willing to play that one out there. So I don't know. I mean, both of them were willing to take the risk there. I mean, I think that's one weakness kind of both of these teams is they don't have a lot of great switch-ins for Dragon-type Pokemon, and it kind of makes you take those risks.
Yeah, especially when Mega Metagross is on the side, Iron heading Jake's Terrakion. Jake just barely holding on with that Focus Sash. Going to be able to get a close combat off onto Metagross, trying to wear it down so close, 21 HP for Mega Metagross. Is Ludicolo going to be able to pick it up? Draco Meteor coming out from Zach's Hydreigon. Of course, it is weaker thanks to that special defense or special attack drop. Will it be able to deal enough damage? Not quite. Ludicolo just barely hanging on thanks to its, very, very strong special bulk, but goes for the Giga Drain onto Hydreigon, dealing just a little bit of damage, maybe expecting a switch there and healing up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that to make the play did if you're expecting the switch there. You don't think Hydreigon's just going to let Terrakion close combat it, so you Giga Drain trying to punish the switch into Jellicent and get the damage you can on Metagross, but unfortunately that's not what happens there, and this position just got even worse.
Yep, Zach just stuck to his best Pokemon, switching out the Terrakion for Metagross for Jake, trying to get his own Metagross out on the field. Tanks that attack from Zach's Metagross, but Dark Pulse coming out from Zach's Hydreigon will be able to pick up the KO on Ludicolo and still do a little bit of pressuring against Jake's Metagross. Of course, Hydreigon has much reduced special attack, but it's still no slouch.
Yeah, I mean, at this point though, I think if you're at Zach's and you're kind of just eager to get rid of it, neither of the Pokemon on the field are going to. Or I guess both the Pokemon in the enemy field are going to outrun it. So it's tough for it to do too much here other than absorb a hit, but it's a tough position for Jake here. I'm just kind of looking through, trying to think of situations where you can bail himself out of this one, and it's tough. He doesn't have the speed now.
Yeah, it's going to be a miracle for Jake to pull this one off. Jake Mega evolving his Metagross is going to probably be able to match up against Zach's, but does have to waste a turn using Protect on Terrakion, hoping to protect it for just a little bit longer. Hydreigon protects as well on Zach's side, so maybe Jake has an opportunity here. Iron Head coming out from Zach's Metagross into Terrakion, substitute from Jake's Mega Metagross. That's going to be really important if he's going to get a comeback here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if these Metagrosses are both the same speed. We most likely saw a tie with a Hydreigon before, and Jake's Metagross going first here could flip the game the same way that the Hydreigon speed tie probably did before. Quick knock out the enemy Metagross, if it goes first, a Terrakion, it just knock out Hydreigon, and then suddenly it's a 2-2 game, right? So great job by Jake to get that substitute out there, give himself at least a chance at winning this game, but we could be flipping coins.
Yeah, well, Zach is going to swat out that Hydreigon, trying to reset its special attack. Gets Landorus out for the Intimidate onto Jake's Terrakion. Of course, the substitute is going to protect Metagross. Metagross is going to move first. It is a speed tie. Does get the KO on Zach's Mega Metagross, which could be huge. But of course, Terrakion up against Landorus, it's a pretty hard counter there. And the close combat onto that Landorus. Not going to deal a whole lot of damage, about 50% critical hit. We've seen a few of those. Terrakion's defenses fall, but that's not too much of a big deal when it only is sitting on 1 hit point. You could have the best defenses in the world, and 1 hit point is all that matters there. But Hydreigon back out, trying to exert that pressure again.
Yeah, so we end up in a pretty interesting situation here where it's going to be tough for Jake to avoid losing Metagross here. Like, he can trade it for Landorus, but Landorus is going to almost certainly lock in an Earthquake this time, break that substitute. If Terrakion chooses to attack, it's going to faint here. So Metagross has to knock Landorus out. But in doing so, Hydreigon gets to knock it out for free. So there's really nothing else you can do here. You just have to let that happen, and
yeah, Earthquake from Zach's Landorus is going to pick up the KO on Terrakion and break the substitute for Metagross. No Protect coming out. Terrakion not going to be able to stick around for this as it faints on the field. Mega Metagross exposed to the world without that substitute. And Ironhead will move first, will be able to connect with the Landorus. Picks up a KO there, but Hydreigon still on the field. Hydreigon very threatening with that Dark Pulse. Is going to get the Dark Pulse off onto Mega Metagross. Is it going to be enough? Yes! Just enough. Mega Metagross faints. Zach Droegkamp takes the win. Game 3 and moves on to our top 8.
Yeah, excellently played series there. I mean, it was certainly a number of antics there where things were pretty crazy the entire time.